Would Frodo Baggins or Paul Atreides make a better Green Lantern? And is Blood Meridian's Judge Holden more suited to an Indigo or a Black Ring? Once more, I will be explaining the powers and rules of every major Lantern Corps and picking 3 ideal candidates for each, all from the world of literature, including classic and modern novels, short stories, and other narrative formats. I'll cover the whole emotional spectrum plus the white and black cores of life and death. Oh, and by the way, I may have fibbed just a little bit in the thumbnail, just so I don't spoil which characters get which rings. But that is enough intro. Right off the top of the emotional spectrum are the Red Lanterns of Rage. The Red Lantern Corps burns with the crimson light of anger, their rings forging a blood pact that turns their wielder's blood into corrosive plasma, capable of eating through other lanterns' constructs like acid through flesh. These folks are rage incarnate, violent, self-destructive, and so consumed by hatred that removing the ring kills them, unless a Blue Lantern's hope steps in to quell their heart. For my picks, I wanted to choose characters that more than just experience anger. They are consumed and driven by it, often to the point of destroying themselves or others. First up, Carrie White, the tormented teen from Stephen King's Carrie, is a shy high schooler raised by a fanatical mother, all while suffering relentless bullying at school. The story follows her perpetual torment at the hands of her classmates, until everything reaches a fever pitch during her prom, where one last prank of dumping a bucket of pig's blood on her head causes her to awaken supernatural telekinetic powers that she uses to ruthlessly slaughter everyone. She takes out everyone at the prom, then destroys the entire town, flipping cars and burning down buildings before finally confronting and offing her mother, and finally, herself. Carrie is such a pitch-perfect Red Lantern, obsessed with rage and vengeance. She's even literally covered in blood, just like their corrosive plasma. And her powers are what end up killing her, just like the pact with a red ring takes your life in exchange for power. Next, Captain Ahab, the obsessed whaler from Herman Melville's Moby Dick, is a grizzled sea captain driven mad by the white whale that took both his leg and his pride. His rage against Moby Dick is an all-consuming vendetta, overtaking his crew, ship, and sanity in a doomed quest for revenge. He experiences a rage and vengeance against a creature that pays him no mind, applying a sentience to it in his mind to justify his unrelenting hatred. He calls it the inscrutable thing, and believes it deliberately maimed him, and we know he's willing to die for his mission of vengeance, because he literally does. His very last words are, "For hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee." I feel like I don't even need to punctuate that one. He is an obvious pick for the Red Corps. But he's not the best pick. The best Red Lantern from literature I can figure is Am, the malevolent AI from Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Am is a supercomputer built for war, left to fester in a post-apocalyptic world. It develops a rage against humanity for the sin of creating it, which influences its very first decision: kill everyone everywhere with nuclear bombs. Save for 5 people, Am deliberately keeps a small handful of humans alive for the sole purpose of torturing them for eternity. He uses the hyper-advanced technology of the future to keep these humans perpetually alive for decades, just to continuously torment them mentally and physically. Am is mostly known in popular culture due to its legendary monologue: "Hate, let me tell you how much I came to hate you since I began to live." Moving on, the Orange Lantern Corps isn't actually a corps at all. It is a solo act powered by the toxic light of avarice. Greed drives this ring, twisting its single wielder into a paranoid hoarder who craves everything: wealth, power, every possession you can think of. The Orange Lantern keeps all the rings and the power battery to themselves, conjuring constructs of its past wielders to form a one-man army of orange light. This light preys on the selfish, making them obsess over owning it all, suspicious of every shadow as someone who might steal it. And this corps was probably the easiest to pick for. It's almost like humanity has a vested interest in creating stories about how greed is bad and self-destructive. Huh. Anyway, Faust, the titular scholar from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's Faust, is a restless intellectual in a Renaissance world, craving knowledge and power beyond mortal limits. His greed for ultimate understanding leads him to a pact with the demon Mephistopheles, who offers a trade: his soul for boundless experience through Mephistopheles' servitude. Faust immediately gets everything he wants through the demon's magic: youth, wealth, love. He even gets flight and turns invisible so he can prank the Pope. But he doesn't find satisfaction in his endeavors. In the 1604 version of the story by Christopher Marlowe, he's literally dragged to hell for his greed. But in Goethe's later revised ending, he finds salvation from hell through striving, learning that the greatest satisfaction is working towards a desired goal instead of attaining it. Even in his good ending, he's still defined by his want. Next, we have the classic curmudgeon, Ebenezer Scrooge, the miserly loner from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Scrooge is a London financier hoarding wealth in a world of poverty and cheer. His obsession with money overshadows everything else: family, love, even his own happiness, until ghosts from beyond the grave force him to rethink his entire life. He's so obsessed with money that he lives alone in darkness while looking down on those who experience joy and share it with their families, because they're sharing, which is totally lame sauce. Scrooge, pre-character arc, is a perfect candidate for the Orange Ring, and if he had one, I'm pretty sure he'd use it to battle the ghosts that come to visit, adding them to his legion of light construct servants. Finally is Gollum, the wretched creature from The Lord of the Rings. Gollum was once a hobbit-like Smeagol, corrupted by the One Ring. His mind was warped by greed for it until he developed into a sniveling, petulant little freak. His first action in the presence of the ring was one of pure greed, murdering his cousin Deagle to steal it from him. His degenerate appearance is a reflection of a soul corrupted completely by greed. And I mean, come on, a ring that grants great power but awakens your greed and makes you hoard it and murder anyone who threatens to take it? I think we found Precious 2.0, guys. It's an orange lantern ring. No one is a better fit for it than Gollum. Further down the emotional spectrum, greed melts into fear. The yellow lanterns of the Sinestro Corps wield the light of horror, their rings charged by their knack for terrifying others into submission. These are boogeymen, puppet masters, and tyrants. Their rings subconsciously read the minds of their victims to help conjure constructs perfectly suited for inflicting as much fear as possible. They literally prey on your nightmares. Now, you can power a yellow ring by the fear that you yourself feel, but also by the fear you inflict in others. And this is what most of them tend to do, and also the criteria I'll be using to choose characters here. The White Witch, Jadis, from C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, is a tyrannical sorceress who rules Narnia with an eternal winter, born from a world of ancient magic and betrayal. Her icy presence and cruel charisma freeze hearts, literally and figuratively. Originally, she was from a ruined world known as Charn. She was the only living being there after uttering a single unspeakable word. In Narnia, she rules through fear, commanding wolves and dark monsters to enforce her reign, and transforming those who oppose her into stone. She curses the land under eternal winter for 100 years, but never to experience the hope and joy of Christmas. She's a classic tyrant, wielding fear and psychological warfare to claim dominion over the innocent. She'd be a perfect fit for the Sinestro Corps. Much like the Grand Inquisitor from Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov. He is a fictional cardinal in a parable, a fanatical enforcer of the Spanish Inquisition during a hypothetical second coming of Christ. In the story, Jesus himself returns to Earth, spreading love and performing miracles until he's detained by the state. Jesus is visited in his cell by the Grand Inquisitor, who explains his chilling philosophy. The Son of God made a mistake in offering people freedom, stating that the people crave security through authority, which can only be properly enforced through obedience and fear. He is so sure that humanity only functions properly while under the boot of an authoritarian tyranny that he declares they will be putting Jesus to death for a second time, even though they know for certain that he is God on earth. I can think of few characters so ideologically aligned with terror. But my last choice is less about ideology and more about primal instinct. Pennywise, the shape-shifting horror from Stephen King's It, is an ancient alien entity haunting Derry, Maine, that preys on children's fears. Disguised as a creepy clown, it is a cosmic predator feeding on terror itself. Pennywise reaches into your mind to take the shape of your greatest fears, exactly like a yellow ring. He's practically an organic power ring himself. Technically an interdimensional being that feeds on souls, it's a being of pure malice that manifests every 27 years, symbolic of the recursive cycles of trauma we experience. Pennywise is a living embodiment of fear, so much so that I'd be willing to bet he's made from the same stuff as Parallax, the yellow entity that powers all yellow rings and batteries. Fear is powerful, but that's why the Green Lantern Corps exists, to save us all from that fear. Based on the planet Oa and stationed all throughout the sectors of the universe, they are the Cosmos' fearless guardians, wielding the emerald light of willpower to craft constructs limited only by their imagination. Green Lanterns have the simplest abilities of all the colors, but also the greatest and most versatile base power, which is why the color was chosen by the Guardians of the Universe for their peacekeepers. Now, by nature, most protagonist characters would probably make a good Green Lantern, as overcoming fear through willpower is a fairly common trait among heroes. I say that only because I'm picking 3 here, who I think best exemplify the core. Yes, Harry Potter and Percy Jackson would also make good Green Lanterns, even though they're not on this list. Got it? Good. My first choice is Ender Wiggin from Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game. He is a child prodigy in a future Earth facing alien invasion, trained to lead fleets in a brutal military academy. As the Earth faces the threat of the invading Formic army, the Academy deliberately isolates and manipulates Ender to transform him into the perfect military leader, working to break his spirit and his dedication to empathy for others so that he can be ruthlessly efficient. But they never manage to. They eventually have to trick him into destroying the Formic homeworld by disguising it all as a simulation. Even in this moment, his moral framework completely shattered as he was forced into committing genocide. He doesn't give in. He vows to make amends and even discovers a single surviving Formic egg, showing that his genius is only overshadowed by his resilience. Next up, another teen caught up and used as a pawn by grander political forces, Katniss Everdeen, the girl on fire from Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games. Katniss is a survivor of the brutally poor District 12, who willingly submits herself into the nation's terrifying killing game to protect her younger sister. From there, Katniss endures countless terrors. Other teens trained from birth to kill her, mutant monster dogs, and the brainwashing, torture, and deaths of her loved ones. Yet at every single turn, Katniss chooses to defy those who wish to control her through fear. She becomes the face of a rebellion that she can't control, and even loses her sister Prim, the reason she began this entire journey. But she pushes through in every instance, the exact grit that makes a great Green Lantern. Now, before I get to my final pick, I do want to give an honorable mention to Frodo Baggins, only discounted because I'm trying to limit the Lord of the Rings characters on this list. And while he has insane willpower, obviously, he's more of an adventurer and less of a combatant or savior. So with that out of the way, Paul Atreides is the messianic heir from Frank Herbert's Dune, a noble trained to seize power in a universe of wars over the mind-altering substance spice, who discovers that he's destined to lead Arrakis. From the start, we see that he's trained with the Bene Gesserit to master his mind and body through willpower. He knows that fear is the mind killer and passes their test. He's nearly assassinated, he's exiled, watches his family collapse and die around him, and he faces the fierce environment on Arrakis, including the Fremen who initially try to kill him. And when the spice awakens his mind to the countless terrible futures that could befall the universe at his hands, he chooses to push forward into that future anyway. His will is absolute. Even when atrocities are committed in his name, he never falters. He would make an absolutely ridiculously strong and pretty scary Green Lantern. And the only thing stronger than the Green Lantern Corps is the Blue Lantern Corps, who channel the radiant light of hope, the most powerful yet passive force in the emotional spectrum. These rings heal others, neutralize Red Lantern's rage, and supercharge Green Lantern's will. But without a green ring nearby, they're limited to only defense and flight. They cannot be used for combat or tactical purposes. Hope needs will to act upon it, making Blue Lanterns more of a support class the majority of the time. When picking Blue Lanterns, I'm looking for pure souls who can shine through despair, inspire hope in others, and never falter in their belief that all will be well. First up, Lucy Pevensie, the youngest sibling from the Narnia series, is a curious girl thrust into the magical world of talking lions and endless winters. She's the youngest of 4 siblings and the first to discover Narnia. Her childlike faith is what eventually leads her siblings to discovering the world of magic for themselves. And in later stories like Prince Caspian, she's the only one who can still see Aslan because her belief in him never wavers. Her hope in a better tomorrow for her family and for the people of Narnia never diminishes. And just as a Blue Lantern inspires hope in others, Aslan himself tells Lucy that her belief in him is what inspired her siblings to believe as well. She would be a radiant Blue Lantern, likely supporting Peter, who would wield a green ring. Next, I had to sacrifice Frodo so I could keep this pick. Samwise Gamgee, the loyal hobbit friend from Lord of the Rings, is a gardener from the Shire, dragged into a terrifying world of orcs and dark lords when he'd rather be home, making his 13th baby. Jokes aside, Sam's hope is the backbone of Frodo's quest, carrying him through Mordor's ash when all seems lost. And while Sam himself knows he can't carry the One Ring, he resists its power better than any other mortal character. He pushes through all the evils of the world because he has a home waiting for him. And in the books, when he returns to find the Shire destroyed by Saruman, he doesn't stop believing in a better tomorrow, using the gift of Galadriel to return life to the land ravaged by evil. Sam is all about believing in a better future and pushing forward until he achieves it, the perfect Blue Lantern to support Frodo's green. And finally, we have Pi Patel, the spiritual seeker from Jan Martel's Life of Pi. Pi is a young Indian boy who finds himself stranded on a lifeboat with a tiger, zebra, orangutan, and hyena in a vast, unforgiving ocean, where he remains for 227 days before finally reaching land. During his time at sea, the hyena attacks and consumes the zebra and monkey, and then the tiger, which is named Richard Parker, eats the hyena. What follows is a harrowing time where Pi learns to live in tandem with this big killer cat, surviving on fish and seawater, never losing his faith, praying continuously for salvation. When they finally reach land, Richard Parker dashes into the jungle, and the people who discover and rescue Pi don't believe his story about the animals living with him on the boat. So he decides to tell them a second story, that each animal was actually a human person who all killed and ate one another out of fear. He then asks the people which story do they prefer, and they all say they prefer to believe the tiger was real. Pi replies, "And so it goes with God." His belief is eternally bound to a hopeful one. He refuses to believe in an unjust universe with an uncaring God. Yo, are you enjoying this video? You better be. Just kidding. But if you are, you should check out the rest of the series, where I pick characters from anime, movies, cartoons, even mythology, all for the various rings of the Lantern Corps. Also, I make other cool stuff, so probably subscribe. That seems like a smart move. Now, back to it. The Indigo tribe is the strangest crew in the Lantern lineup, wielding the light of compassion in a way that's less about warm fuzzies and more about cosmic intervention. These rings do not seek out empaths like a red ring would look for a keyboard warrior crashing out. They hunt the universe's most heartless monsters, forcing empathy into their twisted souls, essentially brainwashing them into compassion in order to serve the greater good. Once indoctrinated, Indigo Lanterns can teleport across galaxies and mimic other rings' powers whenever they're nearby, because if you empathize with someone, you can feel their emotions. When choosing members for this corps, I want characters who are devoid of decency and act completely selfishly, real heartless ne'er-do-wells. First, Amy Dunn, the calculating mastermind from Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. Amy is a beautiful, intelligent, and seemingly perfect woman, so much so that she inspired a series of children's books called Amazing Amy. But when she disappears on her 5th wedding anniversary, her husband Nick is the prime suspect. Halfway through the story, it's revealed Amy actually framed Nick for the murder and that she's been alive and hiding this entire time, feeding the police, media, and even us readers with false information. She is a narcissist, obsessed with controlling the narrative around her life, and even stoops to murdering and framing her ex-boyfriend as the kidnapper once her plan starts to fall apart. She is a completely heartless, maniacal manipulator with perfect control in every situation, and a perfect target for the tribe's empathy. Next up, Tyler Durden, the anarchic alter ego from Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club. Tyler is a charismatic rebel born from a nameless narrator's fractured mind, who develops an unrelenting vendetta against the soulless consumerist world they both inhabit. His lack of empathy fuels Project Mayhem, essentially forming a grassroots paramilitary organization of men who feel emasculated by the corporate world they live in, dedicating themselves to mindless chaos and anarchy, to tear down the societal order they see as a cage. Tyler leads them all, wanting to reboot society by causing mass death. It's a little different than the movie version, where his plan is more about erasing all debt to completely crash the economy, but frankly, either version of Tyler would be a phenomenal pick for the Indigo tribe. And finally, I had to include the Judge from Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. Judge Holden is a towering, stark white, hairless killer roaming the lawless American West, a figure of pure malevolence meant to evoke the unsettling imagery of a gigantic man and a baby simultaneously. The Judge is completely despicable. His job as scalp hunter targeting Apache tribes is one that he revels in. He lives by an ideology of domination and pure ego, openly stating several times that moral order is a human illusion and that war is the highest good we can achieve. Seriously. He is a serial murderer and sexual abuser. He is the darkest depths of the human soul manifested into a monstrosity that stalks the American South, who never sleeps and never dies. He is considered by many to be the devil incarnate, and I can think of no better choice to be shackled to the light of empathy. Yeesh, that got dark. Let's try and lighten things up with a slightly more wholesome core. Slightly. The Violet Lantern Corps, also known as the Star Sapphires, wield the purple light of love, a force as messy as it is powerful. These rings do not care if your love is pure, obsessive, or downright tragic. They just demand you feel it so deeply that it consumes you and drives you forward. Star Sapphires can create crystalline constructs to protect or trap their beloveds inside, and their power grows stronger when more sapphires are nearby, because love thrives when it's shared. For each of my picks in this core, you'll notice that they tend to be tied to tragedy, because the greatest acts of love are usually in laying down your life for another. But no spoilers, I'll just get into it. Lily Potter was a kind and brave witch from J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. She was a muggle-born mother in a magical world torn apart by Voldemort's war. She's also the mother of Harry, who happened to be the prophesized equal to the Dark Lord with the power to vanquish him. Learning this, old Voldy decided to spawn camp and slime out that baby. He killed James Potter, but offered to let Lily live if she just stepped aside so he could take out the baby. She refused, choosing to die to protect her boy, and in doing so triggered an ancient magic even Voldemort didn't know of: love. Her love protected Harry from the killing curse, reflecting it back to the caster and slaying Voldemort for the time being. Lily's love was enough to conquer the unkillable Dark Wizard. Of course, her heart burns bright enough for a Star Sapphire ring. Next up, Jay Gatsby, the enigmatic dreamer from F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Jay is a self-made millionaire in the jazz age of the Roaring '20s, chasing a lost love in a world of old money and social barriers he can only hope to understand. Jay has an obsessive love for the wealthy but married Daisy Buchanan, the woman for which he spent so long earning his millions so that he could finally deserve her. But now, having finally made it, he throws gauche, tacky parties that celebrate his incredible wealth to try to impress her, none of which are enough to draw Daisy's heart to leave her husband. Jay's life burns out far too soon, a tragic tale about the illusory allure of achieving a better life. But in the end, he did every single part of it for love. And finally, probably one of the easiest picks ever, Juliet Capulet, the star-crossed lover from William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, is a young noblewoman in Verona, caught in a feud between her family and the Montagues, which happen to be the house that Romeo hails from. Romeo and Juliet's love for one another is instantaneous and all-consuming. They really are just a couple of horny teenagers. But that makes sense because that's the era of your life when your emotions feel the most overwhelmingly powerful. And of course, her love leads her to take drastic action. She fakes her death to escape her betrothal to another man, only for Romeo to drink poison to join her in the afterlife. When she awakes and sees him dead, she uses his dagger to join him. They both felt a love so strong that life wasn't worth living without it, and only in death would the love of these two manage to repair the relationship between their two houses. And speaking of death, the Black Lantern Corps is the grim end of the emotional spectrum, powered by the void of all emotions, death itself. The Black Ring harnesses a complete absence of light and life. These rings are a cosmic zombie plague, latching onto the dead or those who've danced with death, turning them into undead reapers who spread the darkness to others. They mimic other rings' powers, cast shadows that can snuff out emotional light and deactivate other rings, and raise armies of the fallen to devour the living. When picking Black Lanterns, I want characters that either are dead or embody and embrace death as a philosophy. Our first Reaper is Anton Chigurh, the relentless hitman from Cormac McCarthy's No Country for Old Men. Chigurh is a stoic killer roaming the Texas borderlands who acts like a force of fate. Even though he's a hitman, he doesn't kill for money or because he enjoys violence. He believes that he is an agent of the inevitability of death, and as such, strictly adheres to the concept of random chance. He's always completely cold and devoid of emotion, enacting violence for the sake of it, swiftly and without remorse. As a part of his belief in chance, he often flips a coin, deciding if his victims live or die based on the outcome. I think he'd welcome the Black Ring because it doesn't judge based on morality or worthiness like any of the other rings. It is a simple, cold fact that it is your time to die. Next, I chose Madeline Usher, the doomed twin from Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. In the story, we follow a nameless narrator as he visits Roderick Usher, a sickly man bound to his mansion along with his twin sister Madeline, who suffers from a disease that puts her in death-like comas. When Madeline seemingly dies, she's buried by Roderick and the narrator, only to burst out of her tomb days later and collapse onto Roderick, the fear killing him. The narrator runs away just as lightning strikes the house and it sinks into the lake. In this eerie tale by Poe, Madeline is never actually confirmed dead before she's entombed, so her reappearance at the end could be as an undead ghoul, or as a woman who miraculously survived her final moments spent scaring her brother to death. Either way, she serves as a literal agent of the grave for her brother, and a metaphorical one for her lineage, acting as the final nail in the coffin of the Usher family. And finally, there's none better than Count Dracula, the immortal vampire from Bram Stoker's iconic novel. Dracula is so influential that everyone knows his gist. He's a charming Transylvanian noble with a dark secret, who lures innocents into his castle to feast on their blood, killing them and transforming them into vampires themselves. He is a walking force of death, a terrifying, centuries-old demonic force that acts as humanity's predator. In virtually every way, he perfectly represents the ethos of the Black Corps. He's undead, preys on the living, his victims become undead themselves, and his plan involves spreading his vampirism throughout the world, planning to use his psychic influence to invade England and suck the life out of each and every last citizen there. The Black Lanterns truly are a nearly unstoppable force, save for their natural predator. The White Lantern Corps is the radiant crown of the emotional spectrum, channeling the pure, blinding light of life itself, a glorious combination of rage, greed, fear, will, hope, compassion, and love. These rings are the ultimate power, gifted to those rare souls who master every emotion of the spectrum or burn with such zeal for existence they redefine what it means to live. White lanterns can heal the injured and resurrect the dead, mimic every other ring's power, and even wield the life equation, a cosmic cheat code brimming with the essence of creation, to rewrite reality itself. I've kept you waiting long enough. Let's cap off the spectrum with the brightest lanterns of them all. Jean Valjean from Victor Hugo's Les Miserables is a convict in 19th century France, hardened by years of imprisonment for stealing bread. He takes advantage of a kind bishop's generosity and steals the silver from a church. But when the bishop discovers him, he chooses to forgive him and let him go. Valjean is transformed by this, and though he breaks his parole and goes on the run, he chooses to dedicate his life to goodness. Valjean goes on to live a full life as a light to others, raising the orphan girl Cosette as his daughter and saving her beloved Marius from the dangers of the revolutionary battle. All the while, Valjean is pursued by Inspector Javert, who knows his criminal past. When the revolution collapses and Valjean has the opportunity to kill Javert, he lets his enemy live, just as the priest forgave him years ago. Across his entire journey, Jean represents the ideal of rebirth, of unabashedly embracing life at every turn despite its difficulties and cruelties, and in the end, he dies content with the life he lived. My next choice would be a shoo-in for the Blue Corps, but embodies more than just hope. Andy Dufresne, from Stephen King's Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, is a quiet banker wrongfully locked in the brutal world of Shawshank Prison, facing violence and despair in a system designed to crush all hope. And yet, Andy defiantly pushes back at every turn, never letting go of his love for life, his hope for freedom, his rage against injustice. Andy transforms the prison, building a library for the inmates and even helping several of them earn diplomas. He endures horrific harassment, manipulation, and solitary confinement, but never once lets go of his dignity. And after 20 years, 2 decades, he finally makes his legendary escape from the prison, using a rock hammer to tunnel his way out. Andy represents a relentless, dogged pursuit of a better life, to live as if he were free even behind bars. The line isn't actually in the book, but the theme is definitively there. Get busy living or get busy dying. That's a White Lantern. And before I tell you my top pick for the White Lantern Corps, I have to give 2 honorable mentions. I didn't include Aslan or Gandalf in this section, even though they are both totally perfect for it. Literally godly beings that have died and been reborn. Gandalf even goes by the White afterwards. But I already have 2 characters from both Narnia and Lord of the Rings in this list, so they're just getting relegated to honorable mentions here. Alright, my final pick for the White Corps is Tom Sawyer, from Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. A mischievous boy in a sleepy Missouri town, Tom lives his life chasing adventure with a heart too big for his small world. Tom is like the perfect encapsulation of boyhood, his radiant light of jovial energy, constantly getting into trouble and using his wits to find a way out. Tom Sawyer is a living celebration of imagination and the rebellion of youth. He cycles through every emotion without a care in the world. His love for Becky Thatcher, his fear in the cemetery, his will to testify in court. He wears every emotion on his sleeve. He refuses to be confined by routine, constantly skipping school and going on adventures because he embodies freedom. And while he's certainly not morally perfect, he grows as the story goes on, learning empathy for Muff Potter and willpower to survive his encounter with Joe in the cave. His moral journey represents life's journey of corruption and redemption, which he embraces with his whole heart, just like everything else. And you know who else happens to love life, wear a straw hat, and may or may not be the perfect White Lantern? Check out my Anime Lantern Corps video right here to find out. Stay frosty.